Hi friends, and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be having a discussion on identity and how the world around us and the people around us shape our personal view of self-expression and identity. I think the first thing that we're going to be talking about is compulsory heterosexuality. So basically that just means that it is the norm that everybody is heterosexual and that we kind of lean into this as a society. So growing up feminine, this was very much ingrained into everything that I did. It's expected, it's like the default that you like boys, that you have long hair, that you like you're pretty. I was always told sit like a lady, things like that. And so my femininity was something that I grew up with and I knew, and it was almost like a comfort to me because I knew that if I leaned into my femininity, that's what I was supposed to do. That was what was accepted. And I think that this sort of idea is something that a lot of queer people struggle with because for me, I was never taught anything else. I was taught, you're a girl, you should dress like a girl, and it wasn't like it was discouraged to dress any other way, but it was very much encouraged to dress like a girl. And I never even had the tools to understand that I could be anything else. And so someone who all my life I've kind of felt very masculine and very feminine, that caused me to push away that masculine side and lead into my femininity. And another thing that I was raised with was this idea that you needed to find a man or a boy, that this was some sort of big event in your life. Like the people in my life, like my family members, specifically like my older family members, like the women, my dog. So the women in my family would just reiterate the idea. Hold on, I'm gonna wait till she's done. All right, so basically the women in my family would reiterate this idea that finding this man, your partner, is supposed to be such a big like milestone in your life. And for me, I always thought that was like the end all be all, the biggest thing, the most important thing that I could ever do was to find a man and to be happy. Now, somebody who struggles growing up with depression, that is something that is actually really harmful. So my entire life I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna have a man that will save me from my depression. I'll have a man that will save me from my mind, basically from my sadness. And that is so harmful because it's looking to other people, to other things, in order to make me feel fulfilled and to make me feel happy. And to have that be taught to me is really harmful. And I think a lot of people, especially people my age, go through that. We go through the whole wanting to be loved, especially people that are raised female, that are raised as girls. We're conditioned to look a certain way, to act a certain way, to be a certain thing, so that we're more desirable to men, so that men are going to want us. And it's something that I didn't even begin to dissect and dismantle until a few years ago. And it was really confusing for me because that idea of compulsory heterosexuality, it really just drove me into this spiral of just wanting and craving attention from men, which made me really confused about who I was in my own gender expression and gender identity. So because I was taught all of that, and because I was fixated on this idea that a man was going to save me from my sadness, from my own mental health struggles, I became fixated on heteronormativity. So I was fixated on having beautiful long hair, being super feminine, wearing makeup, wearing dresses and clothes that accentuate my body, which there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes I still like to dress like that. But a big part of who I am is my masculinity. A very big part of who I am is my masculinity. And for so long, I was just shameful of that. And I was pushing that aside, and I didn't even want to recognize it as part of who I was. I didn't even want to recognize it as who I was at all. And so that I started carrying a lot of shame, and I didn't even necessarily realize that that was what I was going through, and that's what was giving me so much shame, because I was so hyper fixated on this idea of heteronormativity, of being this hyper feminine woman that men could love, so that I could feel the feeling of being worthy, which is so ridiculous. And I mean, like, this is something that so many people go through because it's what we're taught in society. And with that being said, it made me feel like I was wrong for existing, because I felt both feminine and masculine, and I didn't understand how to process my masculinity, so I just pushed it away, which is so confusing. And I went deeper and deeper into denial, and I think that led, well, not just that, led to internalized homophobia and internalized transphobia. And that's something that I want to talk about too, because I think that was a big part of my journey, and realizing that I was, how do I say this? I was internalizing feelings of homophobia and transphobia because I was shameful of who I was, and I was almost hateful to people that were out living their best lives, to the beautiful trans people and the beautiful queer people that were just living their lives, because I wasn't able to do the same thing. And I think a lot of people also maybe go through that, and I think that it's important for us to start to dismantle and recognize the internalized homophobia and transphobia that we have, even as queer people. That, at least that's my view on how I need to do things for myself, because I would feel a certain way. Like, even when I would look at like non-binary people, and I would feel a certain way because I was like unsure of who I am, and I was like jealous, and that was projected in a way that I didn't understand it. So I think that jealousy and that shamefulness of who I am, it mixed with growing up in a society who is very homophobic and who is transphobic. That's the society we live in. I think the combination of that was something that fostered a lot of toxicity inside of myself, and a lot of self-hatred too, because I was hating parts of who I am, and that was being projected onto other people, because I was shunning parts of who I am. I was shunning my gender fluidity and being able to be in touch with my masculine and feminine. I was shunning that, and it was causing so much shame, and that shame was being then projected onto other people, because they were doing what they do best, which is just living their best life, and I was jealous of that. And so that was what I think led to my internalized homophobia and transphobia. So that's why most of my life I leaned into my femininity, and I grew up thinking, okay, so like I like boys and I like girls, and now I definitely don't feel like I like men so much. I'm at least cis men. So I grew up liking, pretty much everybody, all genders. And so I was like, you know what? In my mind, what I was thinking was, it's going to be easier for my family. It's going to be easier for me to just conform, to just like, let's just live in the gender norm, because I feel both feminine and I feel both masculine. So let's just lean right into that femininity, get rid of masculinity altogether, because that'll be easier. And then let's exist in a straight relationship, because that'll be easier. Then I won't ever have to come out to my family, because that's what I thought. And so it led for me to living a life where I was primarily dating men. I was looking very feminine, and I didn't realize how harmful it really was, because I've always lived with depression, but now that I'm starting to actually understand my depression, I'm realizing that a lot of it is from not understanding and not really living through my authenticity. So now I want to talk a little bit about homophobia and transphobia passed down through generations, and How do we begin to unlearn toxic mindsets and begin to live through our truths? So I do believe that trauma and belief systems are passed down through generations. So for me, the first step that I did in unlearning my toxic belief systems and my toxic behavior was to look at my parents and my grandparents, the people that raised me. So the first thing was recognizing that my parents and my teachers are not perfect, and that's okay. And that their experiences are their experiences and they're valid, but we have to realize that our parents and our teachers, they are not perfect people. And so I started realizing that, and I started to really dissect how they were raised and the worlds that they were raised in, and it really helped me better understand my parents and how they raised me. And I think that if the people that raise you haven't dealt with their own personal their own personal traumas, or like their homophobia, transphobia, and if they haven't dealt with that, I feel like that definitely gets passed on. But realizing that their traumas and their experiences with their belief systems is not your fault. That's a big thing. So that brings me to the second thing that I started to do, was realizing that their belief systems and the way that they view the world doesn't necessarily have to be the way that I view the world. It doesn't have to be my belief systems, because I'm capable of shaping my own thoughts. I'm capable of shaping my own belief systems. And so I started asking myself the tough questions when it came down to self-expression and identity. And I was asking myself, well, how do I really feel? Who is Haley? And I realized that Haley doesn't exist. That was the person that my parents wanted me to be. And I don't want you guys to think that I'm bashing my parents or bashing the people that raised me, because I'm not. They provided me with so much love, so much support. But unfortunately, they're a product of their traumas too. They're a product of their times too. And so for me, I had to realize that they weren't perfect. And the love that they gave me, it was so amazing and so phenomenal, but they didn't give me the tools to be able to completely understand who I am, my self-expression, and my gender identity. So I had to start asking myself these tough questions. And that leads me to the third thing that I did, that has just completely changed my life. And I asked myself one simple question: how would you look if you didn't have to worry about somebody or anybody being attracted to you? How would you look if you didn't have to worry about anybody being attracted to you? Because for me, that's all I cared about my entire life. That's why I looked the way that I looked, was because I wanted other people to find me attractive. And that just sent me spiraling into this whole, so much unhappiness. And when I actually dissected everything, and I was like, I don't want to look like this. I don't want to look like this. The only reason I'm looking like this is because I want other people to like me. But what about me liking me? What about me liking me? And so I just worked closer and closer every single day, just a little by little, to look the way I wanted to look, without worrying about how people are going to perceive me. Because at the end of the day, it's about how I view myself. And I feel a million times more attractive than I ever have in my entire life. And that's because I'm leaning into my own personal gender identity. I'm leaning into my personal self-expression, and that's a beautiful thing, and I think everybody deserves to have that. But it's tough to sit and to dismantle all of these ideas, and to realize that, for me, the toughest thing for me was to realize that I am existing with homophobia and transphobia. And once I was able to recognize that, I was able to dismantle that, and I was able to really understand why I act a certain way and who I am, and to be able to step into my authenticity more. And I deeply encourage everybody to ask yourself the tough questions and to hold yourself accountable. Because even though I always identified as part of the queer community, I was still being harmful not just to me, but to other people, to beautiful, beautiful trans people and people who identify as non-binary. I was being harmful, and I think it's really important that we hold each other accountable and we hold ourselves accountable. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I love you guys. Thank you for being here, and thank you for watching.